This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet.
Rich Scarcella. Rich, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You had the first question with Jim Knowles yesterday. You watched the entire press conference and the give and take. What was the general impression you received about Jim and how he answered questions yesterday?
I thought he answered questions very measured, in a very measured way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I compare it to the previous defensive coordinator where Tom Allen comes at you hard and fast, just two different types of personality. So it was a little different, but I thought, of course, he handled himself well. He's been around the game a long time. He's been in this position many times. But I think some of the things that he said that I think the main thing, and I wrote that, is he came to Penn State fully intending to put Penn State over the top when it comes to the national championship.
See, I thought that the end was the part that struck me when he was talking about what he could do, and he said, I think I can help. And I think that was the part, like at the end, that was an understated, no ego, powerful message. He thought he could help. I thought that the end was, to me, what the essence of it was.
Yeah, I thought, my friend Mark Wogerich asked the question, why Penn State, why this Penn State team? There was a story out Monday about why he left Ohio State from CBS Sports. Obviously don't know if that's true or not, but I know there's a lot of rumblings that there were some issues with Ryan Day and Larry Johnson, the defensive line coach, obviously longtime Penn State assistant, over autonomy and about calling the shots on defense. And I thought it was very interesting that Jim Knowles volunteered, without being asked directly, that he plans to mesh his system with the system at Penn State because it's been so successful on defense over the last several years.
So let me ask you this about the measured part of it. He hasn't been here that long, right? And there's a pretty good chance he probably knows more about the Penn State offensive personnel than he does the defensive personnel.
True.
Right? Do you think that played a role in being measured? Because, I can't specifically tell you what I want to do with Dennis Sutton. I don't really know yet.
Yeah, nobody asked. I think somebody asked him about, the defensive system, how he would describe it, the one that he runs, but nobody asked him about specific players. I think somebody asked him about the
jack position,
the Leo position, the jack. Yeah. And honestly, the first person I thought of when he was describing the Leo or the jack was Dominic DeLuca.
So in other words, you were listening in on Jack Ham's conversation with me yesterday. There we go.
No, I was not.
We said the same thing.
Yeah, I thought of that immediately. But my point is that I thought, again, I've never sat in on a press conference with Jim Knowles before.
Right.
But maybe that's his personality. It's a measured tone. It wasn't. I don't think he was trying to be evasive or anything. I think he just wanted to make sure he said the right thing. And it's clear he's a very sharp guy. Yeah. And was I impressed with him? Yeah, I was impressed with him because he handled things in a very, again, measured way, very, not boisterous or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I was kind of hoping he'd answer the second part of Neil's question about exactly where he's going to be, which booth he was going to be calling it from.
Yeah.
That's an inside baseball joke there.
Yes. Yeah, Neil was. I think Neil was trying to find out where we're going to be sitting for the 2025 season more than anything else.
Yeah, I think I've got an idea where you guys are. It's going to be opposite of where we are, because booth-wise, we're staying on the same side. I don't know if we're staying in a plywood box. I have no idea, but we're going to stay on that side. I remember when Indiana redid their box. Remember that, Rich?
I do.
And they were redoing it, and as you know, we sit out in an all-glass booth, which we refer to as the hot house, but that's just a nickname, right? Mm-hmm. But when they were redoing it, it was plywood, and it was 27 degrees.
I think that was the 0-2 game when Larry Johnson went off in the quicksand.
Larry Johnson ran for 327 yards on sand that was painted green. Yeah. So, all right. So, what statement do you think it made to people that James Franklin identified a person that he thought was the best person for this job and was allowed to go out and get that person?
Well, first of all, I don't think, again, from watching from a distance, it doesn't appear that he thought he'd be able to get him, that he'd be available. He'd be available. I shouldn't say that he'd be able to get him. I think it's a clear indication that Penn State, from the top down, is all in with the football program right now, and especially for this particular season. I think if you're a Penn State fan, you should be very, very happy with that. I think the commitment is clearly there from the top down. Obviously, with the financial, not only with Knowles' $9 million contract, but also reportedly Anthony Poindexter getting a raise, and also all of the players that they were able to keep. Obviously, they had to pay them something with NIL money, but it still shows that Penn State is fully committed to winning a national championship. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's the money part of it that's going to be interesting. How interested are you? Because the fans now know they're getting money. Now, they're still 18 to 23. How interested are you in how fans will react to college players going forward? Because they've always reacted differently to college players than they have to pro players. Do you think that line has now been completely blurred?
That's a great question, Steve. I don't think a lot of fans, college football fans, not just Penn State fans, know exactly how much some of the players are getting. They've seen reports about this guy here at Michigan, quarterback coming in, or other players, maybe in Texas. I think they would be surprised, very surprised, to learn how much some of their favorite players are getting. And I think, would they be upset? I think some might be, but I think most would understand that this is the way the game is right now. I've had so many people over the last few years complain to me about the transfer portal, complain to me about why are they paying players when they're getting scholarships, full scholarships. And I said, look, we can argue that all we want, but we're not going back. And this is the way it is, so you have to deal with it.
And you do have to deal with it. I mean, there's no question. You have to adapt to what the current system is. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to keep doing it the old way, don't be the first person to complain when you're 2-10. You've lost the right to complain about a 2-10 season if you want to do it the old way, because that's not how it works. When you look at have you taken a long look at the House settlement and the $20.5 million that people that schools will be allowed to pay if they wish to athletes. Have you taken a look at that?
I haven't taken a deep dive into it, and it's something that I would like to do between now and spring practice, and maybe I'll get an opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm well aware of it, and I'm, I know the money is coming. I mean, expected to come, I should say. But no, I don't know the details of the whole thing.
Yeah, because April 7th is going to be the big day as to when Judge Claudia Wilkin is expected. There'll be challenges, but expected to approve it. It's going to be interesting because you already know that what you just talked about player retention.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those agreements are in place because of the $20.5 million and not just NIL.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, I use the NIL as a term only.
Okay, gotcha.
Not to mention the House settlement money, but you're right. And honestly, with some schools, including Penn State, if that settlement doesn't go through, there could be a lot of scrambling going on.
Right. Oh no, there's no question. Everybody would be in a scramble mode.
Yeah.
Because of that. Do you in any way? I mean, I think I know exactly what your answer is going to be, but do you cover this in any way that's different compared to years gone by because of the money involvement?
I mean, what I write is different, but I don't think I change the way I cover it because, I mean, we're not privy unless somebody comes forward and tells me exactly how much players are making at Penn State and reveals it to me. I mean, we don't really know. We can guess. We can all guess. We have an idea, but we don't really know exactly how much players are getting. And that's the only change. And I'm actually surprised that more money figures, more figures haven't come out across the country on players. I mean, there's some speculation and a few stories have come out about people, but I'm surprised there haven't been more.
Yeah. How important will it be to talk to Jim Knowles after spring practice and find out if he is still matter of fact about things versus actually having some answers in his own head about players? How important is that going to be to you?
Yeah, I think it'll be really important because he'll have how many months? February, 4 or 5 months experienced interacting with the staff, interacting with everybody in the Lash building, interacting with the players above everything else. And I think it'll be really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to delving into his background as a Philly guy, the son of a Philly cop. And, I'd like to know more about that. I know somebody asked him about what he thinks it means to be, from Philly. And he talked about the toughness and resilience, and I agree with that. But I'm more curious. I'm curious to find out more about his real background. Like I am, and that's just how I am with everybody. It's not just Jim Knowles, but it's just with everybody.
What's interesting is, to me, it's not just the Northeast Philly background. It's the Cornell background.
Yep.
And it's not as if Jim hasn't been a head coach. He was the head coach at Cornell for a period of time. And I would wonder how being a head coach, Ivy League or not, has meshed with how he thinks as a coordinator, where he's working one half of the ball instead of being the CEO of the whole thing.
Well, I think he's pretty comfortable in that. I think he made that clear yesterday. Is that when somebody asked him about aspirations, I think it was Neil. He has no aspirations to be a head coach. He made that pretty clear, and he's 59, and I'm a little older than him, and I understand where he's coming from. He just wants to do what he wants to do. He probably could be a head coach somewhere.
Sure.
Somebody would hire him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I think I think his head coaching experience is important. And I know, talk about complimentary ball. He mentioned that about what it's something that he has noticed and admires about James Franklin is that he's not the offensive play calls complement the defense. Like you're not, trying to score as fast as you can and then go 3 and out, 3 passes, and the defense is back on the field. Excuse me, Steve. So I think he's well aware of a lot of things. I think, just based on everything that I've read about him and what I saw yesterday, I think he's a really sharp guy.
Well, it was interesting because there's no doubt in my mind that reference was to Oklahoma State. Being in the Big 12, you're like, oh, great, I got to go back out there again? We just got off the field.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much the game has changed along the way. You've now experienced the 12-team playoff. In seeing the 12-team playoff, I know I asked you about whether you'd make any changes in it or not, but just what do you think it's meant to college football to get to 12 teams in terms of the interest in the game?
I think it's a great thing for the sport. I think the sport needed it. We talked about the changes. I don't know if I would move the schedule back and have it end on January 1st. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I do think having a 12 team, expanding it to 12 teams, expanding the playoff to 12 teams, really drove up the interest in the sport in November and in December. I think it's great, and I have no problem if they go to 16. I don't want to see it more than 16.
Right.
But if they went to 16, I'd have no problem with it. I think the interest is clearly there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I that's the way I felt. Ask Penn State fans how they feel about it. Finally getting to the college football playoff and succeeding in it. That close to being in the national championship game. Yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Well, you can usually get a gauge either on readership or clicks or whatever, or just people talking to you. Are you getting that gauge from them?
Oh, no doubt about it. Talking to people out in public in my second career, my broadcasting career, doing high school basketball games. People want to talk about Penn State all the time, especially over the last month and a half. During basketball season, some of the coaches I deal with are Penn State fans, and they ask me this and that, and I've heard nobody complain about the playoff like around here. I've heard. I think there's a tremendous amount of interest in it.
Yeah, I think it's done wonders for the sport. And again, as I've said many, many times, college football's biggest problem over the years has been the people who run college football. They never have been able to understand what made the public tick. And they always thought that, it's great, we can argue when the season's over. No, I don't want to argue when the season's over. What the heck are you talking about? I want to find out who the champion is. That's just
Steve, have we heard since January 20th, I haven't heard, Alabama, South Carolina, whoever complaining that they deserve to be in the field. I don't think it's I think you got a legitimate national champion, in Ohio State. I don't think anybody's arguing that they're not a legitimate champion, and that's because they went through the process. They won 4 games. I just think it's a great thing, and I'm with you. I never got it draws interest in the sport arguing over who should be number 1 or who should be in the 4-team playoff. I never got that. I never understood that.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I know we covered a multitude of topics as usual. You were outstanding. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure, Steve. Safe travels to the West Coast.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. Always great to talk with him.